Hello, this is Dean Radin, and I'm on Your Superior Self.
Hi, I'm Anita Murjani, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hello, this is Dr. Raymond Moody, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, Cultural Creatives. I'm Bruce Lipton, and I'm here to join you with Your Superior Self.
This is Paul Selig, and this is Your Superior Self.
What's up, everybody? I'm Aubrey Marcus, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julia Cannon, and I'm on Your Superior Self.
Julia, I can't explain to you how honored I am to have you on the show. I'm a huge fan of yours, your mother's, QHHT. I'm really fascinated with the philosophy, the modality of hypnotherapy. I've had a bunch of QHHT practitioners on the show, and to cap it off with you here really is just an amazing, I can't even say it enough, amazing experience. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So I have to say, and I just told you this off air, but I'll say it on air, is I can still, like, every night I listen to your metaphysical hour with my daughter when I'm putting her to bed, and listening to your mom and you talk about your travels all over the world. Like, just what was that like? I mean,
crazy.
I mean, every country, you guys, it seems like you have been everywhere.
Pretty much. There were a few places we hadn't been, but very few. We were, especially there was this 2-year period that was relentless. I mean, we were just going constantly, and that we kept joking, you know, it's like this is what it's like to be a rock star. Let's just keep going, because sometimes we were just moving one place to another and just staying very briefly, you know, it's like just long enough to do the class or lecture or something, and then we were going on again. It was crazy. It was wonderful, though. What I love about traveling is meeting the people. The people are always so awesome. The travel part, not always so wonderful, but but when you get there, that's really cool.
What's your favorite place to visit or work?
Goodness. For work, you know, there's so many wonderful things, but probably one of my favorite places I've ever been, and Hawaii's throwing up a very close competition here. It's going, wait a minute, what about me? And it really is, it gives it competition. But New Zealand was probably one of my favorite. And I was only able to be there just a few times, so I haven't been there as much as I would like, but it's amazing.
You're the second person that I've heard that New Zealand has, like, surprisingly come up as one of their favorite locations. Like, I've never thought of that, right? Like, you and I have spoken to you know, you're good friends with Blair Styra.
Yes.
I've spoken with him a couple of times, and he's going to come on the show, but he lives in New Zealand. And this is surprisingly the second time that I've heard that New Zealand is, like, fascinating. What is it about it that you really enjoyed?
It's what I found, what it felt like was, and I haven't been to all of the United States yet, but what it felt like, which is interesting, was that they took the very best of the United States and put them all together, and that's New Zealand.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like all the really cool things that you love about the United States, and there you go. You know, but it's you know, it's a unique country. It's its own country. It isn't the United States, but I was looking at it as far as scenery and what the beautiful things that the US has to offer, and that was New Zealand. It's just gorgeous. Our wonderful friends over there, including Blair, they were taking us all the way from the North Island, we came into Auckland, and all the way down the North Island and the South Island. So we got to see several places on them, and ended up on the, oh goodness, is it Cape? Oh shoot. Cape Town is in Africa. It's Cape, I feel like it's Cape something. Anyway, but to the south, and that was really, it was just cool. Then we went jet skiing and all these things. I mean, that's like some of those places are where you go, the adventurers like to go. I'm not an adventurer, but I can see, you know, they do all the bungee jumping and all the power boat things, you know, so that was it was fun to experience that.
How long did you and your mother do the radio show?
She started it in 2005.
Wow.
With them, that's when they began BBS radio. They began in 2005, and she was one of their very beginning guests on there, or hosts. And she did it by herself for years. And then as we started traveling, and then she would say, well, why don't you join me and we'll talk about what we just did, things like that. And as we started doing that, she's like, I like it better when there's somebody with me. And that's why I do it too. It's like, it's much better when you do it with someone, or you're interviewing somebody, something like that, where she would just sit there and talk, and she was amazing to be able to do that, just hours on end, just talk. But so she did that for, like I said, a couple of years, and then I started joining her, and then we just made it a duo after that.
Mhm. And for those that don't know, her mother, Dolores Cannon, is she established QHHT, which is a hypnotherapy modality that really taps into the subconscious, and we can really tap into if you want to call it universal mind, if you want to call it subconscious, you want to call it the one, whatever that terminology is for you, but tapping into that and allowing that energy to heal ourselves has been really fascinating for me, just learning more about that. And you've written a book called Soul Speak, The Language of Your Body,
Right.
which dives deeper into that healing part, and how through our illnesses and diseases and ailments, the subconscious is trying to communicate with us, like what's going on behind the scenes that are causing some of these, which I found
Absolutely.
fascinating. It's pretty interesting. You have like basically everything in here, from sore throat to laryngitis to stomach issues, thyroid, like, and letting us know what the subconscious is trying to communicate. How long did it take for this information to come through?
Well, that was the cool thing is my mother was getting the information through her sessions. It was starting to come in, and her story is a long, varied one, but it was like it went through series of twists and turns, and then it got to this part where the healing started happening. And so this part, and she called it the subconscious because she didn't know what else to call it, but it is that universal knowing. It's that part of ourselves that has all the answers. And so it's tapping in there. And so when that started happening and people were starting to heal, then she started asking more questions around that. And they were like, well, they had this issue because, and then they start telling them the whys behind it. And then she'd come home and talk to me, and she's like, guess what happened in my session today? Well, I have a background of being a registered nurse. I love the body. I love how it works. It's a fantastic machine. And so when she's telling me these things, it's like, that makes sense. When it was saying, okay, whatever, they had this knee, they were going to have knee surgery or something, and they had this issue because they weren't moving forward, or something like that. I'm like, that makes sense. The legs, you walk, things like that. And she would do that over several weeks or whatever, just time. And I started, it was just amazing to me. And then because it's in there and I work it like a puzzle, people just come up to you, meet people every day, people that and how you doing, what's going on? And they were, isn't it funny how we usually, I got this ache and I got this problem, things like that, and they would do that. They tell you all about your aches and pains. And I said, and so I started going, well, is this going on in your life? And they're like, oh my gosh, how did you know that? That you must be psychic. And it's like, no, you're transparent. Your body is literally yelling. And that's when I started putting this together. It's like, oh my goodness, there's something here. This is real. And I kept doing that over and over, and it was proving itself to be valid, because whatever they had symptom-wise, they had it connected with something going on in their life. And I started understanding, I started relaying it to like a language. And that's where it started making sense. That's why I call it the language of your body. So as far as how long, it probably could have been written in a month, maybe, I don't know, within a year, but I had my own issues to deal with, my own resistance, my own stuff that I was working with to delay the whole thing and drag my feet. So it actually took 7 years but when they, our higher self, the universal knowledge, they were giving me messages as well. And they were like, okay, they kept telling me, this is your book to write. And I resisted. finally, and then 2012, they said, okay, you have 1 year. I'm like, what? What? This is, you have 1 year, we're giving it to someone else. It needs to be done. I'm like, but this is mine. This is mine. And so I'm like, and I knew they meant it. And it was like, oh my gosh, I can't piddle with this anymore. So I'm like, okay. I got to work, and within a year time, I had it done and it was published.
That's so fascinating. So when they speak to you, is that through a session? Are they telling you that 1 year, or how are you receiving that guidance?
It used to be, I could kind of hear it. It was like this, it was a presence. It was something. It's really hard to describe how it is now. It's just a knowing. I feel it. I sense it. I just know it. But I think it used to be, and a lot of times I'll say I'm hearing this, but it's actually, it's a knowing all the time. So it was probably just something came into me that I knew. I mean, it was just, it felt like this is how it is. Boom. Yeah, it's really hard to describe sometimes.
Sure. How do you validate that, right? Like that knowing? I mean, did you set up tests or how did you?
In the beginning, and that's how I think that's how it shifted, is because I did all these tests in the beginning. And I feel like this is a very human thing to do. I mean, when I talk to people and they are going through some of these growing, awakening things, it's like it goes to almost a standard course, because a lot of people that say, well, this is what I mean, how do I know this? How do I do this? And they're questioning everything. I'm like, yeah, that's the human side of us that does that. And I must have heard things to some degree in the beginning. So see, it's so funny because I'm to this point now, and it's like, how did it start? But I must have heard things, because there was a point that I was talking to them and I'm like, okay, how do I know that this is you? How do I know this is you and it's not me? Not just me and my, conscious mind or whatever, me just being, happy to hear whatever. I'm just saying things because some of the things I was hearing were really good. And I'm like, how do I know this isn't my wishful thinking? And that's what almost everybody says when I talk to them. How do I know this is them? That's normal. That is normal to question it. So when I asked them that, they said, okay, well, we'll do this, let's just do this. And in my case, they said, when you hear us, let's say it'll be over here. You'll hear it here. And when it's you and your conscious mind and your wishful thinking, it'll be, let's say, over here, or maybe on top or something. Anyway, we're picking things. Now that was just me. This is just, it was a game. It was a game I was playing so I could understand it. And so it's like, okay, I can work with that, and then going forward, then I would hear things. And it's like, okay, that's coming over here. Okay, it must be them. All right. And a few times I'd get something over in this other area. I'm like, okay, all right. Then I know that one, I'm not going to rely on as much. And anyway, and then I would get validations that whatever I'm hearing is real. And I talk about this a lot. It's like in the beginning, I got that. It was like I needed it, I think. And I think everybody will get it. You will see, you'll get a message. And this goes for anything. You ask a question, you'll get an answer. You will get a message. It's just a matter of if you will hear it. Will you listen? Because they're always talking to us. So, but you'll get something, and then you will get confirmations. In my case, I always got like 3 confirmations in a 24-hour period to validate what I was hearing. It might be somebody off the street. It might be a radio song, or it might be something on the television. It's something I would hear, and it'd be like verbatim what I heard. And so that was starting to develop my trust in what I was getting. And so it goes through a process. We don't just go, oh, yay, I've got it. It's okay. I'm going to trust you implicitly. No, our human side does not do that. It's like, I don't know what you're up to. I don't know what you're about. I have no idea what's going on here. And I think I'm going to shut you out altogether. That's kind of what we do. And then if we're entertaining the idea, it's like, okay, you got to prove yourself. And that's where then when what we're doing though is we're building that trust. Now, after a while, I didn't need any more confirmation. I trusted. I was like, I know this, I got this, I feel it, I know it. So there's no more that I have to challenge or anything like that. But I still get the confirmations. And so that's fun to see that I don't feel like I need them anymore, but they still come in. So I feel like anybody doing this, you will get your confirmations because that's just how it works.
Sure. So are they still guiding you? Are they pushing you, or are they kind of just keeping you on track right now?
It's keeping me on track, but there's times that they have to push. Like in 2020, I got majorly pushed to create my online course for Soul Speak. I had been getting messages for quite a while. It's like, you really need to make this a course. People were telling me I'd love it in a course. I'd love it. It's like, okay, I'm going to make it in a course, but everything was so crazy busy. I just hadn't been able to do it yet.
Mhm.
And then, we're all quarantined and things. I'm at home, and all of a sudden it was like a pressure cook. It was like I was feeling pressure from every direction, and it was like, get this done now. I'm like, goodness, what? But it was like, okay. And I did, and it had its purpose for being done right then. But I'm so glad I did it, because it's done. It's out there. It's been fantastic at helping people go to that next level of understanding of how to heal themselves and how to help others heal themselves.
Are you still doing QHHT sessions, or are you just mainly focused on your work now?
Well, I am teaching. I teach QHHT, and so we keep progressing in that and creating more courses, higher developed courses, and going from there. And so I do that work as well as the Soul Speak work. So that's where my energy is. I don't do the sessions. We have so many wonderful practitioners trained for that.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I think the website is very beneficial for those who are very curious about that. So if someone's listening now and you want to head over to QHHT, there's a directory where you can find local or people that are located in the United States and worldwide, I do believe.
Worldwide, it's everywhere. We have practitioners, thousands of practitioners all over the world. And what we encourage you to do, if you're looking for a practitioner, is look in the area that you are willing to travel. How far are you willing to go? And look there and see who resonates with you. Really look at them, do your due diligence, call them, communicate with them, see who resonates with you, and before you have your session.
So talk about when in the early days, right? Like when your mother, you guys, all the kids are out of the nest, she's experiencing that, I want to get back into hypnotherapy, and she starts, getting back into having sessions, and like when she starts tapping into the subconscious and starts telling you about some of the information that she's receiving, like what was your impression back then?
Well, that didn't come for a while. Her first, back then when she was first getting into it, that was years. It was just history, just going to other lives and meeting these really interesting characters and getting that information and seeing a whole different view of history. It was quite a while. We had to go through the ETs and all of that phenomenon before we got to the part of this other part that knows everything. And so we're talking years it went. So it was a gradual developing, which is what she had to have as well. It wasn't like we can give you the whole ball of wax right off the beginning. And so the beginning, I wasn't, I was in my life, I was nursing and in another state, but we would get together, we were always talking on the phone, and she was like, oh my gosh, guess what happened today? It was always that, guess what happened today? and we would talk about it, and it was just fascinating. And then when it started branching into this higher knowledge, by then I was now working for the company. I was here because my life took a dramatic shift, and then and that's what wanted me. My universe wanted me here. So now I'm doing that, and so then she's coming in and she's talking about what she's being told, and it was amazing. One of the funny things is she started getting, because the Convoluted Universe book started coming out, and that was this information that was coming from this broad area of information. And as she kept, she'd get further and further into it, but she was always coming in and talking to me about what happened. And I remember sitting there and I'm just like nodding because it sounds familiar. It's like, there's something about this I get. And I'm nodding, and she's like, no, this is new stuff. You don't know it. And I'm like, I'm just nodding because it's familiar. And she's like, you're supposed to be in awe. You're supposed to be, I wasn't giving her the right reaction, but I'm just like, this is familiar. I know this. Well, and that's what people say when they read the books. It's like, I don't understand it necessarily, but there's something about it that's familiar.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that part of us that we're connecting with that does have that information, where we came from, something. That's what this is all about. It's about remembering.
Did she
So,
struggle with that at the very beginning? Like just trying to, like, especially with the ETs, right? Like, she seems so like she was very grounded, you know what I mean? And she was very particular about her research, and she researched a lot, right? Like just listening to her in her books and her radio show. Like she's all about validity. She's all about presenting evidence that can be supported by science or by others' experiences. And not just like 5 people. I'm talking about thousands of people's experiences, right?
Exactly.
Did she ever struggle with that at the very beginning, like trying to decipher like what this information means, and like can we take stock in it?
Yeah, I mean, she was like a reporter. She would take the information in, and she wouldn't research it until she was completely done with, like, back then she would work on maybe lives or something. She had people going back to the time of Jesus, and they would have lives with Jesus or different things like that. And she would wait until the whole story was done before she would do any research. So that way she couldn't influence it in any way. She did the same thing with Nostradamus. I mean, it was more like, it was her curiosity was always out there in front. So it wasn't that it upset her or unsettled her. It was just, what is this, and what else is here, and how can I do this, and what can we do, and what's the story? She loved these historical stories. That was her passion. And then when that story was over with that person or persons, then she would start doing the research. And that's where it was like, she'd be amazed. And this is back before the internet. This is back before, anything easy. She had to do her research by going to the library and looking through microfiche and, microfilm and things like that. And she would be all day sometimes and to find one little piece. And that to her was more validation than if she were to find something big and broad, because it's like, if it was that hard to find, she knew her client had no way of finding it and knowing it.
Yeah, she would write stories about writing letters to historical societies and to city facilities asking for historical documents.
Right.
Like, and that takes time. Like that's not something
takes time. Yes.
like now it's a Google search, like to your point. And she was actually sending letters back in the day to historical societies trying to get information and documents on people that came up in past life regressions. Like, I mean, that's real reason. Like she literally was a reporter, like gathering support. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's what she would call herself, the researcher. Let's see here. The oh gosh. She had it like it was almost like a tagline.
Reporter of lost information or lost knowledge.
Lost knowledge. The reporter, the researcher of lost knowledge. But there's another piece to it. But anyway, that's the gist of it. Yeah.
When I listen to the show tonight, she'll say it, and I'm like, "Oh, there it was."
Exactly.
Yeah, it does feel right. It's like a remembrance. It's like, but there is the beliefs that we have. Like we grow up in society and we're ingrained in these belief systems. Like right now, what I think you're seeing a lot of is the old patriarchal model crushing on its head right now, especially in Iran. It's the feminine's coming up. The feminine is coming up, and we're seeing it in our models. Are, like I said, it's collapsing. Like why people don't want to keep going to work is because of that patriarchal model that's in your office about you have to be the best, you have to be cutthroat, you have to do this, and that to get ahead. And it's like nobody wants to do that anymore. Nobody wants to, they want to be home with the family. They want to be open. They want to be more empathetic. They want to feel the feelings. They want to communicate more. They want to, it just like my daughter has she's been struggling with soccer just because like of the competition aspect of it. Like like she's bumping up against that. And sometimes it's like, why are we doing this? Like, why are we putting them through that when that model is busted? And like, I feel myself too, like, it's just like, as a father, as a husband, it's like,
Mhm.
you know, I've been raised in a society, in a model, and no fault to anyone that, you know, my family members, but it's like that's how we were all raised, and now it's crushing and we don't know how to adapt. It's like we're all kind of like our belief systems are being yanked out from underneath us, and then you go and you listen to Convoluted Universe, right? Like I'm on book 2, and it's like, wow, like that just totally makes sense. I don't know if that rant makes sense to you at all, but
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for calling it a rant. That's what I call mine. I'm like, does anybody understand this when I do this?
I try
Yes.
to like communicate, like I just feel it, I can see
Mhm.
it, right? It's just communicating that. It's like
Mhm.
I just hope that other people see it, because you know, you don't want to go to work anymore because you keep going in there and you feel the resistance, you feel the competitiveness, you feel yourself going up against a wall of like, you don't want to be told what to do anymore, you don't want to be there is no communication, you're starting to like wonder, why am I feeling like this? Why do I want to spend more time with my family? Why do I want to spend more time in nature? Why do I want to spend more time talking to my friends and family and
Mhm.
being open? It's the feminine. It's like being open. It's being, you know, receptive and taking in all of that good energy vibes that are starting to come up.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we went through a great reset there. That's what I call it. It was like the whole thing just shifted, and we're not in alignment with that other anymore. It just isn't. And when we were secluded with our alone or with our closest family, it shifted everything, and it did. It showed you other ways that things can be done. And so then now to try and go back, that's going backwards. And that's what we feel, I think. It's like we don't ever go backwards. We always go forward.
Mhm.
So,
Is that like the new earth that you talk so much about? Is that like the vibrations raising to um
mhm.
for society, for the world to start really transforming?
Yeah, that's what we were noticing after, because at first it's like, why is this going on? What's happening? What is this and everything? And then as it was starting to, after that year, things kind of people started moving again, and we started noticing it. Maybe it's been a little before a year, but our practitioners were getting people coming in for sessions, and they're like, oh my gosh, the level of these sessions is off the charts. These people have done so much personal inner growth during this time that when they came out, they're like, I have questions, I need answers, I want this. And they huge growing during that time. So I think that's what it was about. Like I say, it's like a reset. It's like we were so off course, I guess. And it's like, no, we got to get back here. And when we do this work with ourselves, yes, we're raising vibrations. And now we can move there. And
Hmm.
we are moving. I'm not going to say, it's not like we're moving to another place. It's just our frequency rising, and then we are always in a new place.
Do you feel like with your body, like when you raise your vibrations, do you feel like ringing of the ears at all? Like
Yeah.
mine have been going like bonkers.
Yeah. And what that is, what we have found through several different ways is that that's where it's like, I say it's a calling to come higher. It's a calling to raise your vibrations. So it's like you're being asked to raise. And so and Blair was one of the first ones that was saying that. So that'd be cool to ask him about it. But what I found when I heard that, it was like, okay, well then the next time it happens, I'm going to think lighter thoughts. I'm going to raise my vibrations. And Blair has wonderful suggestions on how to do that. And so it happened in the middle of the night one night, and I'm like, okay, I'm thinking light thoughts. It's almost like Peter Pan, happy thoughts, and I am God, any of these things that will raise your frequency. And sure enough, it went away. So what that's telling you is you raised up to it. Now, I believe when you do that, my feeling is that, see, that's your guidance calling you up. So there's probably information then when you get there, you will probably get some information of some kind at that time.
Yeah. I feel like they're preparing me for a message or something, like maybe to communicate more. Because I definitely feel a difference even in my body. Like if I get into that I am space, like
Mhm.
I can feel my body. I don't know if it's adjustments or something happening. Like my body doesn't feel the same. It's like the vibrations like
Mhm.
start getting a little little faster in frequency, and it's like sometimes it can be painful sometimes, like, because you know what I mean, like the tinglingness in your fingers and legs.
Right. Yeah. The body's got to catch up. It's happening. It's in different layers, different parts. We have our mental and our emotional and our physical. And then there's probably other things. And this is what I'm kind of getting the feeling of. I get visuals too. So that's part of this knowing. I'll get some kind of a visual and I'm trying to interpret it. But I have known for quite a while, a lot of times the body is just trying to catch up. It's like there's a part of us, the frequency is raising, and now the body is just trying to do its thing. And so that's where we get some of these issues, is that there's just a little bit of a gap. It's not much. It's just the body's just trying to get there.
Did you struggle in your development, right? When we say when I say I am God, like, did you at first have, like, were you, did you hit that wall of like your old beliefs saying, I'm not God, right? Like, I'm not that.
That would have been way back there, but I had some really good teachers. Shirley MacLaine is in my lifetime of where she had those struggles, and I saw that movie and I saw that book, and I read that book, and I have met her and I've been with her, and she's talked about these things. So I had all of that to help me to realize it's perfectly fine to say that. It makes total sense to say that, because, and then, so that would have been way back there when I'm dealing, if I would have heard it the first time, probably, or when I heard it the first time, then I might have gone, I don't understand this. But as I kept hearing it, it made total sense. And then also in the QHHT, I was given a drawing by them to draw for level 1, and it explains how this part of us that has all this information, it's also in soul speak, it's that part of us and how we're connected to it, and how that is such an accurate statement. And we can say that we are God because in this picture shows you exactly how it's valid. And I'm like, well, of course it does. Yes, this is how we can say that, and this is why we can say it. I know some people have a real issue with it, but we are God. That's plain and simple. We are.
And so Shirley MacLaine was a big influence on you. When you work in QHHT in the subconscious, are they relaying the same information, the same statements that we are God? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they are. We are great creators. We are, like I said, that we're part of the all. It's always, you are part of the I am. And in many sessions, people are taken back to the source, to shown how they come from the source. So if you are from the source, you are a part of it. It is a part of you. So this is who you are. How do they describe the source, the original source? It's usually a very bright light. When they say it's a bright light, we go, okay, it's probably where they are, and full of love. It's so much love. It's overwhelming love. And they feel like they're part of everything, but yet they still know who they are, but it's like there's like a community that they are one with. And it's always that oneness thing. So this is where the I am all, and the one comes into play. But it's such an overwhelming love that they usually start crying. So those are like some of the key things that we see.
And I've heard the sun, right? Like, I think it was in Convoluted, they talk about going back to the sun.
Right.
And like, to your point of going back to the one, like feeling that as a whole. And then we feel the sadness, we feel like almost lost when we're individual, like when we break out of that. Right. It makes sense.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of people want to know when they have a session. They're wanting to know, where do I come from? I've all my life, I've wanted to go back home. I don't know what home is. And that's why sometimes in a session, that's why they'll be shown that, is because that's one of their questions. I don't understand why I'm here. I want to know where I come from. Who am I really? Where is home? See, there you go. They get that answer in this one scene.
But I wonder if there's anything past the source. Like, I wonder if, like, how convoluted this universe is. Like, I'm sure, like, we just haven't tapped into that yet. Like, what is beyond that sun or that source? Like, where is the, what's the level after that or before that?
Yeah, interesting. I don't know if you've heard of Guy Needler. if you have, he might be somebody you might want to talk to at some point, but he has seen that. He has a book called Beyond the Source. So
Really?
yeah, and it's like where he goes further out, and it's like you have to really stretch your mind. I always said that Mom's books were the deep end of the pool, his are the ocean. It's like that, they really deep.
How does he get his information? Is it through hypnosis?
Through channeling.
Channeling.
Mm-hmm.
So the information that you receive, would you consider that channeling?
Yeah, I try and remember what it's like. It just comes to me in a knowing. What the channeling part, what I consider channeling is whenever I'm talking to someone and information is coming through. And I used to I felt like I had to tell people, this isn't me, this is them, because it was, it uses your voice. The only way you can tell is that you're talking faster. If you really know me, you'll know when it shifts, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so I felt like I needed to tell people, because sometimes it can sound like a know-it-all, and it's like that was there's a struggle. That was a struggle, is claiming that, it's like it's coming through me. But that's that part of me that doesn't want to, I don't know what that issue is. It's something psychological. It's like, I don't want to appear a know-it-all, because it's very wise when it comes through. And that's another way, is it's very sound, wise information. But that's the part that I would consider channeling. The part where I just know things, but see, that's when I know things. It's usually when I'm talking to somebody, it just comes in, or I have to ask a question. Mm-hmm. It doesn't just thrust information on me, mm-hmm. just when just because.
Can you go to that source for yourself? Do you go there often for like your unknowns and for life? Life gives us certain situations where we kind of get frustrated and we don't really know what direction to go. Do you go to that source for guidance?
I do. Yeah, I do. I'll ask, like I said, you just ask questions, you get information. So it just comes as a calming thing. It's because it's a knowing. And so it feels like I do it more when I'm talking to someone else. This is interesting because I can do it just myself, but it feels like it's more powerful, or there's more there when I'm talking to someone else. I don't know if the other person has a part that they're playing in there as well, energetically, that's mm-hmm. helping. I don't know.
Sure.
It's a good question. I'll ask him.
Well, why don't you go ahead and ask him? Like, ask them for me, right?
Well, that's why they said that. That's why that came through. Because see, that's how it works.
See, I don't know difference yet, Julia. We got to speak more so that way I know exactly who I'm talking to.
But that's what, as I was saying that's what it was. That's the image it's giving me. It's like there's something energetically here that works when there's somebody else there, and so that gives okay, what are you saying? It's an energetic back and forth thing.
And it resonates.
That feeds this. Yeah, it does something. Whereas it's just myself, I can get information, but it's not as, I just find it easier when I'm talking to somebody, it just slides right through. So yeah, so there's something with it.
Well, sometimes it's easier to see other people's perspectives too, right? Like sometimes we get hung up on a lot of our inner issues and a lot of our junk, and like I know I do that for myself. Like I doubt a lot of the information that I receive, because it's like, no, they're not telling me that. Like, no, that can't happen. Like, it does feel great. It feels great, and then you're like, no, that's not it, right? Like that can't be it. Let me try again. Hold on, for real this time, we're gonna do this. No, it can't be right. Yeah.
No. They're probably out there like anytime now.
Well, you ask a question, right? And it's the answer you don't want to listen to, or you don't want to hear. You're hoping they're going to say something else, but you're receiving something. You're like, no, that's not right. No, that can't be right.
Yeah.
We're going to go do this.
Exactly. Now, when they've given information for other people, that's fun. That's a lot of fun. I'm saying that very sarcastically, because sometimes they want me to say things. It's like it would come through like, you need to tell them this. And I'm like, okay. And that's where that trust comes in, because I have to trust them to just, you got to do this. I'm like, all right. But then it might be really harsh language, maybe even curse language. And I'm like, I'm not going to say that. And they're like, you must say this, say it. And they'll be, say it now. I'm like, no. And I'm fighting over here and talking to this. I'm like, they're like, say it now. And I'm like, okay, look, they're telling me I got to tell you this. And then I'll say it and they're like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I needed to hear. See, I didn't know that. And if I would have said it any other way, the person would not have gotten the message that they needed.
Oh.
And so it's a matter, I've learned to trust it. It's, the first, I still once in a while, if they ask me to do something really crazy, I will debate for a while. But usually I made an agreement early on when this started happening. I said, okay, I will deliver. I will repeat it exactly as I'm getting it. I won't add anything to it. I will deliver it exactly so it's pure. And, I'll do that for you, so that's what happens. And then when I debate them, I'm not going to say that. You must say it. So, see, I made an agreement and I still want to back out on it.
Right. Yeah. I guess you gotta honor the agreement, even if you're in, whatever situation, social situation, you gotta, unleash it, because they might need to hear it exactly the way that you put it or state it, we all need a slap to the back of the head sometimes, just to kind of knock us out of that, that trance,
Right.
I just, do QHHT, like a lot of the practitioners do they develop these skills psychically when they start practicing for like a long time, like some of the level 3s?
Yeah, when this starts happening, this happens, my opinion, and it's supported, is when you have the sessions themselves. It's not you're doing great works by being a practitioner and helping others to get their answers. But when you have your own session, anybody that has a session, when you have that and you're making that connection with that part of yourself, and then that's what's great is when we're aware, and this is where we are now. This is the development of humanity, of our DNA. We are where we can be aware now. When Mom was doing the sessions 20, 30, 40 years ago, we weren't at that development yet. And we weren't ready to be aware in these situations. And so that's where the people would go off the deep end and completely be unaware of anything that happened. They felt like they were asleep. Our DNA has changed, and we are now where we can be aware in these situations. I'm not saying awake. We're not awake. We're aware. And we're aware that we're here and laying here and talking to the practitioner, or they're aware that we're in this room. And then we're also aware of being in another dimension, another, universe, another world, or connected to this higher part of ourselves. So see, that's what they want. They have come through and they have said, this is what we want, because this is how you develop. When you make that contact with us and you make it consciously by being aware, then when you're awake, you know what it felt like, and you can make that connection easier. You'll trust it because you've made it before. Now, what's so important about having that connection? Like what I do, anybody can do this. Anybody can do this, and this is where we're going, is we are learning to trust our own information, the answers that we have within. And I'm getting the buzzing all over my body, because so long we have been giving all of our power away by going to others outside of ourselves to tell us what's right for us, to tell us our answers. Who knows us better than anybody? Who knows what we have going on? Who knows our answers better than we do? And that's what they want us to do. Go to your own internal answers. Rely and trust on yourself. Stop giving all your trust to everybody else out there. All your trust and your power. It's really the power. It's like, this is about taking the power back.
Yeah, I call it outsourcing God, right? Like we do it all the time. Like, which I think there is a need for that to some extent, right? Like you need to build a foundation or whatever resonates with you, but to a certain degree, like you're not going to find any more information. Like once you hit a certain point, right. Now it's time for you to turn inward and really dive into what you're, who you are, like know thyself. And the only way you're going to do that is through meditation and like really deep listening.
Right. Yeah, you make that connection, and then it's really cool. I mean, then you'll start getting you'll start hearing or whatever, feeling something. You'll know things and not know why you know them or how you know them. And that's where that's building that. It's a muscle. Psychic abilities is a muscle, but we all have it. And it's just a matter of connecting it and trusting it, allowing it, and then continue to build it.
Sure.
Just strengthen it. And as it gets stronger, the easier it is to do. And then that's when it becomes, it's just integrated and you just know things and okay. And you don't need proof anymore.
What do you, all right. So I love just connecting with your energy. Like I just love having conversations with you, Julia. What do you know about me? Like what are they saying about, do you get like a sense like about me and like with QHHT, like my interest in it? Like, are they giving you any guidance on that?
No, ask me questions, talk to me and ask. And this is how it usually works. I don't just, do a reading on somebody, something like that. It's like, as you talk to me, if there's information, they will deliver it.
Sure. So how do I step more into that God power so that I can recreate my reality?
Keep going.
How do I step more into the God ability or God frequency to step more into that frequency to recreate my reality so that I can manifest my desires and podcast more? I can do QHHT sessions. I can live a life that is truly aligned with my heart's desires.
Okay, what I'm getting is that you're already doing it. Just trust it. You already have an idea, and so go with that. You're already on that path. So what you're thinking,
Nice.
and I don't know what it is, but it's like it's surrounded by what you just asked. But it feels like you're in alignment with it already.
And how do I end up in Hawaii?
You come to the reunion. You come to the reunion in February that we're having.
Wow. What is the reunion?
We're about to announce it.
Oh, wow. Well, it's funny because like I feel like I'm receiving guidance from your mom, right? Like I visualize her and she's speaking to me, and the way she speaks to me, it's like she calls me Mr. Downs, like not in a serious way, but Mr. Downs, how are you doing today, kind of thing. Like she's the one, like before we spoke, like when I was in LA, we had that conversation and she was like, she said, ask Julia, about the scholarship, right? For QHHT. And I'm like, what? No, there's no scholarship for this thing. And I had mentioned it to you and you're like, yeah, that's not even supposed to be up on the website. Like this is something like, it's crazy how those things happen. Like you go to this deep meditation, you have a conversation with someone who's no longer here anymore. You're essentially having a conversation, telepathically with their consciousness. Right. They're feeding you information, right? Like about a scholarship through QHHT that I had no idea that was even a thing, right? So I go on the website and there, of course, there's like a little scholarship thing that wasn't supposed to be on there. Right. And then you're telling me, you're like, yeah, that's not like, yeah, that is a thing, but it's not a thing yet. Like to me, that was just so like, so real.
That was proof for you. And sometimes we need proof, and that's where things like that will happen. Is you need a body of evidence. You need proof. That's fine. It's okay. It just that's part of what you're manifesting to help you know that you're on the right track.
It's so, but I love that stuff, right? But it's like how the one thing that's frustrating about being a human is like you need reassurance like that constantly, right? Like that to me right there is a big like firework, right? Like that's a wow, that's validation that you're really communicating with consciousness, human consciousness, communicating with Dolores Cannon. Right. And then validation through you and our conversation. And then it's like 3 weeks go by, right? And then you're like kind of like,
I don't know.
Yeah. What am I doing? I don't know. Was that real? Was I making it up? Like, so that's like that's the frustrating part, right? Just being a human being and not. Yeah,
that's the human part. That's that old conscious mind just doing its job. It's just, they're protecting. It's always, building that buffer and everything. And it's like, oh, it wasn't anything, and we believe it. And that's, mom always had the term, she always called that Mr. Stupid. Not meaning it facetiously, but just meaning it in the way that part of us thinks it knows everything. Conscious mind thinks it knows everything because it's doing a lot of work, for the body and for our world and everything. but it doesn't know anything when you put it in the grand perspective of what is really going on. And when it tries to control that, that's where it's like, you're being kind of silly here because you're trying to control something that you know nothing about. And that's where this was another thing I had to learn, was how to cooperate with the conscious mind. Because as this part was starting to develop, the conscious mind's going, I don't know. When like one of the first sessions, it's like, no, you saw this on a movie, you're making this entire thing up. It's, oh, you're just chattering away. I'm like, God, and so finally I got to where I could just talk to it. And I'm like, look, what have we got to lose? Let's just play the game. Let's just see what happens. And it was like, okay, as long as you're going to look at it that way, then fine, we can do that. And so then it would calm down. And then when we get to that subconscious part of the SC, we call it, then it's like, oh, wait a minute, I don't know about this. I think they're going to come in and try to take over. And so we'd try to put up a little fight there. And it's like, well, wait, let's just see what they got to say. What is it going to hurt? Mm-hmm. And then it started going, hey, this is kind of cool stuff. This is interesting. So that's where you're gaining the cooperation. And that's what you want. You want the cooperation with the conscious mind. And this is how they showed it to me. Rather than conscious mind, get out of here, and conscious mind coming back and going, no, big daddy, you get out of here. I'm the boss, and you have a fight. Okay. And that's where we get some of this, why am I not doing this? But if you work with the conscious mind and just say, hey, let's just see what we're doing here. Let's just play the game. If it looks at it as a game, then it's like, okay, well, there's no harm. There's no threat. Then you've got the two working together. And this is what they showed me. Then this is rising. Now, what does that look like? Maybe rise in frequency? I don't know. Maybe.
You have a way of like just, making it make sense, like you have a gift, a true gift, right?
Oh,
to just kind of communicating that and, just resonating with.
Well, that's how, a lot of it, they give it to me that way. I was told that this is one of the things I'm here for, is to kind of break down complex situations and things into very easy to understand things. But they also give me pictures, because I understand pictures. So they give me a lot of visuals. They give me a lot of pictures. And I think that helps because that breaks it down for me. So then I can interpret it and break it down.
Mm. I have to ask you this, right? Because Paul Williams is a friend of mine, and I saw a clip of you on his show or his Instagram, and it was talking about after your mother passed, and your identity after that.
Yeah.
And it was so deep and meaningful for me. I really wonder, like, if you could just give me some insight on that, like your struggles after she passed, and like where QHHT was going and where you were going as Julia Cannon.
Yeah, I didn't know who Julia Cannon was. I had been helping my mother, I'd been working with her for 10 years at that point, side by side with her, or in the room somehow, I was in the back of the room doing things, or as later I was up on the front with her teaching side by side. And as I saw it later, it was almost like I was protected under her skirt kind of thing. I was in her, it wasn't like a shadow, but I was just enveloped in her aura and what she was doing. So I was there assisting her all the time. Well, then now she was gone and I'm out here in front, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And when Mom and I worked together, we were partners. We were a couple. We were a duo. We had a real symbiotic relationship that we played off of each other. We knew what the other was thinking all the time, what we were getting ready to do, all those things. So it was a really cool bond. And then now that part is gone. And I'm like, I've got to figure out how I work this and how I be her and me. And, and then also there were people, I know they meant it well, but they were like, okay, so you're going to step into your mother's shoes now, right? And those are big shoes to step into. And I know they're being nice, but that hits. And it's like, how am I going to be her? I don't know how to be her. I'm not her, and for a while I was trying to be her and me, and I was losing me. I don't know who I was. And so it took a while. It took longer than I thought it would. But I talked to other people that have gone through things, and they're like, no, it takes a while. It takes a while to work through a parent's death or any significant other, to work through their passing and to kind of rework who you are within the world. And So now it's like there's a different, you know, she's here, but it's in a different capacity. We still work together, but it's different. I know she's around. Well, I can feel her with that. I don't know if you just felt that. So, but anyway, but it took me a while to figure out who I was, what I wanted, and what I was going to do. And that's where I feel like then the pressure cooker came on for Soul Speak in 2020. See, that's 6 years. I see 6 years later. So that's when I kind of really started stepping out. 6 years. And that I'm here that's not unusual.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So
and there's still parts I'm still not completely solidly over here. I'm still working on it. It's a total work in progress.
Sure. You guys were a team. I mean,
we're a team.
You guys were trailblazers and like on subjects that most people weren't even comfortable even thinking about, let alone talking about. And you guys were holding conferences and writing books and I mean, Ozark, you guys did a ton of conferences, and you guys were doing this way early. Like her content, like she has so much content out there. Like I'm just like, she was literally like, she's Gary V before Gary V, right? Like
she's way ahead of her time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just that you got to take time to find out who Julie is, right? Like I just feel like that's a natural process.
Right.
Where did you start finding her? Where did you start finding Julia? Like
I'm still finding her. But a lot of it came in, gosh, that's a good question. Where it was as I started being willing to, people kept telling me, you have to put yourself, like in QHHT, I everything is, and I still believe this, I'm keeping it true to the way she taught it. But then there are some parts that needed to be taught maybe differently with a little different slant or something. And that's what I can bring. And so I was looking for what I can do that brings my view or brings without affecting the core. And so and when that was responded to, that's when I felt like, okay, now I'm being me. I'm able to bring my part to it. And then like I said, then after that, then the Soul Speak, it's like make it into a course. So that was totally me. Yeah.
That's beautiful. How can people, I hate that this hour is up already.
Oh my goodness.
Can't even believe it. How can people find out more about you? Where can they find Soul Speak?
You can find the book Soul Speak at Ozark Mountain Publishing, so ozarkmt.com or Amazon.com. And then you can find the online course at juliacannon.com. And then I also have, this may have been your next question, I have just recently launched an Academy of Metaphysics. And this was something that Mom and I were talking about before she passed. And it got pushed way off into the back after she passed. And so now it's, again, coming to the front, but it's my way. It's like, I hate to say it that way, like it's my way, but it's like, it was something that we both were wanting, but now I'm doing it in my style, I guess.
Sure. Oh, sign me up. That's what I'm talking about. Julia, this has been fantastic. We're going to do this again, but
wonderful.
I love everything that you're about, and I can't thank you enough for the work and putting this stuff out there, writing the books and the classes and everything that you do.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me on. It's been a true pleasure and so good getting to know you more.